Hello and welcome to another Toybox audio video demonstration video. This particular video will be focused on the filter device from the Tangle Pack collection, recently released pack with the quite unique Tangle oscillator. Now this pack though has this special filter which has the general settings, the general knobs you'd expect from Toybox filter. We've got standard key tracking, pre and post distortion, asymmetry to handle the different kinds of harmonics generated by the distortion routine, an FM knob to fluctuate the cutoff wildly with an external signal, and this shape knob which gives the user access to a variety of different shapes which you can set up in the options window. Let's go back to the options window because this is where our focus is going to remain for the duration of this video, other than flicking backwards and forth to change the resonance. What we're looking at is the list of models here. Now, we've got a little list here which I can glean over roughly. We've got a couple of ladder filters at the top there, 3 ladder filters in fact, our own ladder at the top there. One by that's closer to a Moog style ladder, another that's closer to a Roland style ladder, a diode filter that you might find in 303s, silent key filter that you might find in MS-20s and MS-10s, and a couple of our own filters here, a clean filter and a dirty filter. So this other option here is the resonant mode, and I mean the text here explains it. Ultimately, filters are the product, they're a product of feedback, a special feedback circuitry, and different types of inversions of the signal, and the amplitude of that feedback signal into itself. It's quite an interesting little world of circuitry. But what this little knob here, what this little switch here does is it adds a high pass filter to the resonant feedback circuitry, which stabilizes that resonant feedback ultimately, depending on the material, depending on the cutoff setting and the resonant knob setting. So at the moment we have no high pass filtering in that network with this ladder A setting. So let's just listen to some steady notes so we can hear it change. So here we have let's increase the resonance so we can hear the resonance, and flick back to the options screen. So here we have no high pass, and if we just look at the wave observer window to the right there, we can see the nature of that wave there and how the filters affected it. Obviously it looks like this initially, and now it looks like this. So what happens when we add a high pass into the circuitry? Now this resonant mode has 2 high pass settings, one slightly higher than the other, and so there's 3 modes: high pass 1, high pass 2, and no high pass filter. So with no high pass filter, that's what it sounds like and looks like. If we put the highest possible setting on, we can see that the nature of the resonant has changed, the waveform has changed. It's more like a windsock and sounds different, very slightly different to this. But without the filter we can see those that kind of archy step. It's a little exaggerated. This is more high frequency. That seems to be also have more low frequency content. So that's a subtle change in the nature of the filter. Let's switch to ladder 2. So this is with a high pass on high and the kind of lower high pass setting. I believe these filters are set to something like, let's say 50 or 60 for this setting, say 20, 30 for here, and obviously 0 for there. And we can look at the signal changing a little bit. We can see that that's more linear, and I would say possibly stable. Slightly less stable, you can see a small curve happening here in this little undulation of the signal. And if we open it out entirely, we see the curve of that signal a bit further. So let's have a look at ladder C. Oh, this is quite distinctly affected by this resonance knob. So we can hear the stepping of that resonance at the top there. Open it a little bit. Not much change, but as soon as we open it entirely, that high resonant material seems to have shifted and sounds kind of like it's in a lower frequency range here. Maybe it's slightly higher there. So let's look at the diode mode there. This is kind of like the 303 mode. So there we go. So that's with the high pass setting on the highest setting. That sounds useful, does it not? Open it out a little bit. Signal's quite muted. And further muted. So what we're listening to now, what we're experiencing now, and you might have seen this in many of the synthesizers that you use day to day, that some filter models, when you increase the resonance, especially with the low pass filters, when you turn the resonance up, the low frequencies kind of get attenuated, they get turned down, and the resonant part of the signal becomes louder. So kind of this is a kind of affecting that attenuation of the low frequency signals beneath the resonant area, because of the way the feedback circuitry is working, ultimately kind of what's getting countered out, what's getting phase inverted and affected by the circuitry. So this is quite a big change for the diode circuitry. We can hear that. This sounds useful, but why is this not useful? Why couldn't it be? It could quite easily be if you want some screaming highs. This is good for a bass. Let's look at the silent key filter. Oh, that's exciting. With the high pass on the highest settings, we've got this. And we can open it a little further. Doesn't appear to change that much. Let's open it entirely. Not much of a change. Let's go back to the top again. So that isn't affected so much by the resonant mode circuitry, the high pass circuitry. Let's have a look at the clean filter, our clean filter. So this is affected by the resonant mode circuitry. We can hear that there's slightly more bass when we have the high pass on the highest setting. Let's lower it a little. And open. Now the whole signal's changed there. We can see that's kind of more balanced. There seems to be that peak above the positive. It just seems more balanced. Let's go back to the high pass again. Very subtle changes. There's slightly more bass. It's mostly unchanged, and less bass in this signal. If we look at the dirty, this is quite juicy, this one, I can tell you. So there we go, high pass setting or the high setting. And on the medium setting, there's a subtle change there. You can see from the shape. Let's open it entirely. And you can hear the resonance becoming part of the lower frequency content. It's being affected by it. It's kind of they're working together. Let's just slow down the Okay, that covers all those different funny shapes of filters and the resonances available to you. Obviously, again, we can change the slopes and some pre and post distortion if you fancy as well. One more thing I should mention is that this little table of filters that you can select up here. Let's select ladder A, and we have all 8 filters available. We can affect them, or we can kind of select them with this shape knob here. And obviously, look, these are all the combs and notches, and got the high pass and band and a low pass there. This knob at the moment goes from 1 to 8. We can limit that by, say, let's just go from 1 to 3. And now the scaling has changed for this knob, and it will maximum hit the third selected filter there. That's useful for, well, only you can imagine what you might use it for. But there you go. That covers the models and the resonant mode, which are kind of an interesting part of this particular filter. Okay, thanks for listening and watching. Enjoy the rest of your day.